Hi, this is Survivor Scrappy Media, and today I want to show you a coloring technique using your color pencil. So in my prior video, I gave some highlights and some shading to my Prima doll, and simply with color pencils. And it almost looked like I used some kind of Copic or anything like that, but it really was just with color pencils. So I want to go ahead and show you how to do that. So these are really inexpensive color pencils, as you can see here, and I'm going to show you the technique using this stamp for flowers, how you can do the same thing with a flower, and then I'm going to show you with the Prima stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and take them out of the package, and I'm going to stamp on just plain white piece of cardstock, and I shall be back. Okay, I went ahead and stamped my image, but I just want to let you know that the trick for getting a nice impression is either using some kind of foam. You can get a mouse pad, even packaging foam will work. I happen to have this McGill foam that came with one of my McGill tools to help shape flowers. So that's what I use, but you can use any kind of foam. And then notice this one, it's not as well defined because I didn't really put a lot of pressure in the middle and I didn't have the foam. This one's a little better. This one I did use the foam, and so you can see all the detail. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you need to do is pick some colors that will simulate skin tones. Now I'm using this pack. I do have more color pencils, but I just want to show you how you can get the same thing with a cheap little 24 color pack in case you don't have a big box of color pencils. So you just try to find some that are similar to the skin. And then the trick to this is to make sure you have a sharp point and lightly, lightly put layers. So just lightly, and see how I'm barely touching the paper. I'm putting layers of this, and see how you can already see how it really works. You do not need to color the whole face with the color crayon, because remember, we want to create highs and lows. We want a little bit of shading. So I will put a little bit on and then I'll on the whole area, and then I'm going to concentrate just putting layers upon layers of color pencil. And then you got to figure out where the light is going to hit. On my doll, the light is going to be hitting this way, so there's going to be more shadow around these edges right here. And that, you don't need to overdo it. See how you can really get the shading? Don't overdo it. That's the trick of this. Just very light pressure. And I'm barely even touching the paper. Very lightly. And I'm just concentrating on the edges here. And see how that looks? Is really looking like it is shading and skin tone. And this is a very, very cheap little box of color pencils. The same thing here. So I'll continue on shading, putting the base color, the lighter color, and then going over on the edges with the darker color, and then going again. Once you put the layer of the darker color, you put the light color on, and that's going to help blend. Now these color pencils are not as creamy as some other ones, but it still does a nice job of blending if you just follow this technique of layering lightly each of the colors on. And I really like it. I do not have Copics. I do have Sharpies and Bic markers, but no Copic. And I noticed that because I use Sharpies and Bic, they are very saturated and they're very strong colors. But when I want a light color, I go to my pencil and watercolors. Now here I'm putting a layer of white because I want to lay, this flower is going to be an iris and it's actually going to be yellow. So I want to put a light color of white, so that way it will allow my pencils to glide a little better. Now these pencils are not the best. When I did put the white color pencil, it did scratch the paper a little bit, and you'll see that more. It'll be more apparent on the doll in a moment. But if you have color pencils that are a little more higher grade and a little more creamier, you wouldn't have that issue with scraping your paper or putting indentations on your paper. But it still works, and as you can see, I just want some yellow on the bottom, so I'm layering the darker colors on the bottom, and then I can go over it a little bit with the white color pencil to kind of help blend it in. And I think that's it. And now I'm looking for 2 colors of green from this pack, and I'm just putting the first layer of green very lightly. Now with the darker colors, you really need to be careful, because if you put any pressure on the darker color, it will create a dark line, and you cannot erase that dark line. It's there permanent. So I like to kind of really go very light when I am laying down light darker colors, and then go over it again with the lighter color to help it blend. And then I'm also using the white blend color pencil to help it blend a little better. And I'm just kind of just putting the colors on. Now I didn't really know what color to use for my iris. Sometimes if you have a live photograph with a live flower or things like that, you can use that to help you guide on the color choices and on your shading. But I don't really have, this was just a stamp, so I did my best on kind of figuring out the colors for each of the pieces, and also the shading where it's gonna reflect. Now I am gonna do at the end, once I cut this out, I am gonna put some glitter on those 2 edges. I think that's the stamen there. I am going to put some glitter glue. Here I'm going back to my doll. I'm finishing up the skin tone. Now I'm doing her leg with the lighter, and I'm not sure what color that is. It's kind of more like a skin tone color. And I only had 1 light color in this whole pack, skin tone. In my other, I do have Stampin' Up color pencils, and then I did buy a Prisma color pencil pack, and that one has a little wider range of softer colors and skin tone colors. But for these, I just had this one kind of peachy and then darker brown. Now I'm going to do the hair, so I'm going to use some reddish brown, and I'm just laying down, going around the edges, and then after I finish the edges, then I start kind of going towards the center of the hair, as you can see there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now you do see a little more streakiness here, but that will blend in a little more. You'll see in a moment. I will go ahead and blend it in with my black. Actually, I'm going to use black for the edges. Now I'm going over the bangs, and then here the center of the bang has less color. It's a little, because that's where the light's going to reflect. And then the edges of the bang is where I'm going to concentrate the color. Here I'm concentrating the color on the edges of the hairline. And it's coming along pretty nicely. And now I'm just gonna blend it in once I put a little more black. I'm blending it in a little more. And I think that's it. I don't want to overdo it too much. So now I'm going to do the dress. I'm trying to pick some colors for my dress. And I am going to go over with the white pencil. However, that was kind of a mistake. Now I'm looking for a sharpener, so I'm going to go to my electric sharpener that's on the other side, and I sharpen my pencil. Now that was a little bit of mistake, and you'll see in a moment, because that white color pencil, it's hard, and it did kind of scratch my paper. And when I laid down the color pencil, you were able to see those scratch lines, but it actually brought texture to the dress, so it wasn't a total loss. Now if I would have done that to the face, that might have not looked as good, but since it, you know, the scratch marks were more on the dress than anything, it was more like it looked more like the texture, that the dress had a little bit of texture. So as you can see there, just the edges of each pleat with one color. Then I'm going to go back with the next color, just making sure that I just lay it slightly. And it does look a little darker, but in a moment I'm going to go back with the other color and it blends in. And ideally, if you're using this technique, you really need to at least color with minimum of 2 colors of your color pencil. You may, if you have a wider variety of pencils, you may even be able to use more than 2 colors. So the last piece that's missing is the headband. Not too bad for color pencils. So way cheaper than Copic markers. You do get the kind of look. Now be careful, see how you can see little streaks? That's when I went over it with my white. It kind of like made or scratched the paper because it's not soft. If you do get, the Crayolas are a little softer than these. And if you get the Prismacolors and things like that, they're a little softer. So the softer your color pencil, the more it will blend and more creamier, and it will kind of work a lot better. But if you don't have those, don't fright. You can still use these. So I hope you like it, the technique, and thank you for watching. Bye now.